Hello and welcome to a new episode of Values Workshop. It is a wonderful chat that I'm looking forward to. I have met the guest only once and I'm quite intrigued because she seems quite pensive, calm, peaceful, all those things. I want to know what kind of mind ticks behind that kind of personality. Let's find out. Hello and welcome to a new podcast. Thank you for joining me, Rakshita. Before I get into the questions, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Rakshita and I'm basically from Bangalore. And yeah, I've studied engineering and liberal arts. I did a program called Young India Fellowship, and I've been interested in education for quite some time now. And other than that, I've been working with Cisco for 6 years, and then I worked at a startup. So yeah.
Okay. Uh, that sounds like quite a wieldy background. Uh, my first question is, I was thinking, what is it that I would want to ask you in the brief
Mm-hmm.
meeting that we had? So your face reflects peace and serenity. So I want to know whether you are
Mm-hmm.
actually peaceful inside or is that a freak of nature?
Uh, so when you say peace, do you mean uh, acceptance? Yeah, I think I started to learn to accept things more and more, especially as I grew older. But it can be deceiving. In deep inside, I have a lot of chaos, and but I try to make peace with it, and I'm learning how to. Um, yeah, so I've become more accepting, I can say.
Okay, that's a very interesting perspective. So is that chaos uh, due to circumstances, due to your own habits? Can you tell us a bit about the learning of how are you able to stay at peace with the chaos?
Uh, so I mean, I do realize there's duality in everything, so including my own thoughts. So that's where the chaos is arising from. um and and containing that and accepting how I've been doing that is just understanding it's okay. And everyone goes through this, and it's the nature of how things work. So just um yeah, just understanding that. uh, Earlier I wouldn't know this. I didn't have words to express, and I thought I was really confused or something is wrong, or the words I used back then was because I didn't know. But of late, I've understood that that's how the reality is, uh, and that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Back then, when you couldn't manage the chaos, what was the story in your head? What were
so
your
so
reactions?
so constantly I had different interests, sometimes seemingly opposite and polar, by like uh, very distinct interests. So for instance, I would want to make a lot of money on one hand. On the other hand, I would really think about why poverty is there and how education can help. So this urge to urge to be in that uh, capitalistic world, but also recognize how it is sort of affecting the world. um, uh, and yeah, I mean everything I would want to do would have two different angles to it. Like NGO versus a corporate, or um, I don't know, a city lifestyle versus an urban lifestyle. So different things. But now I understand each of it has its own role to play, and you just go through it. Yeah.
Why the duality in your head?
Uh, Sorry,
Why,
I didn't get
why,
your question.
why did the duality exist in your head?
Because I would look at things as either or, right? So I used to think, okay, one is good and one is bad, and one is right and one is wrong. Um, and sometimes it's just not that simple. There's more to it than just right and wrong, or with certain things it's easy, but with things like how money works, how society works, it's not either or, and you sort of have to encompass both. um
Okay. Was there a sudden understanding of things, or was it gradual? And how did that come about?
it so it so I had I had this idea that education would end poverty. That's the means of how people would start to becoming rich, and they'd be able to sort of earn their living. At the same time, I also knew education for just earning is not helping me itself grow. So how would the society progress? So while I was volunteering in some grassroots organizations, I think I had this idealistic view of, okay, wanting to learn things through discovery, through intuition, and the rote learning and memorization is not something that needs to be taught to kids. But then over there, when I realized, the when you are in dire poverty, and when you're thinking about today's meal at the end of each day and how do you make up for it, you wouldn't be thinking about uh, say alternate schools of thought, or Waldorf's education, or which is very, at this point, it's a very elite thought to say. You are just thinking, do I know how to read and write English? Do I know how to get some job and get out of poverty at the earliest? So yeah, that's when I realized that what you read and what you think is ideal need not necessarily.
Be true.
Yeah.
When you were going through this space and you were learning what you did, how did you use
Mm-hmm.
this learning into your new experiences or your new way of responding to the situation?
So one thing is my approach to um, situations. I started to think from more perspectives. So um, you can think from different lenses, right? So you think what you think is ideal. You also look at, for who is this benefiting. Is it benefiting just for certain sections of the society, or and for what is it benefiting? So for who it is benefiting, do you look at all sections of the society? And for what is it benefiting, you look at all angles, right? There's Maslow's hierarchy. Like you see at all stages where this is fitting in. So yeah, that's yeah, major impact was, okay, am I able to think about people which I never thought otherwise? So
Okay.
think from their lens. Yeah.
This leads me to ask a question which is connected and yet it is a little off the track. When you
Hmm.
were going through your difficult time trying to figure out life, How
Hmm.
did it affect your near and dear ones vis-a-vis their relation with you or your relation with them?
Uh, I still think it's affecting them. It's a phase and it's cyclical, right? It's not that, oh, I figured and now everything's good. I think this keeps happening where I'm trying to figure. And my parents, um I think my parents initially uh, knew that I'm interested in a little bit of like the first time I quit job to go do Young India Fellowship itself, they had this idea that she's looking for something different. And even my volunteering experience, they have been supportive. But at each time, I think it was also my responsibility to communicate. And even right now, as I'm figuring the next thing, um, I do have this pressure that um, they sh- they shouldn't be thinking this girl is all over places, and why can't she just do what everyone else is doing. So that constant communication is there always. And with my husband, it is more it's less um, pressure pressured, I'd say. He sort of gets it, because the age, or uh, it's more easy. I'd say that I don't feel as much pressured to communicate as much as I do with parents.
Okay. Why
And
would
my
you
friend
use, sorry,
some
please, please.
and with my friends, so with friends of your age group, right, it's a little tricky because you get into this competitive mode. And you also want the best, they also want the best for you, but the competition is also something that comes because you're always comparing yourself with them. But if I talk to friends of different age groups, right, the older or the younger, then that pressure reduces automatically.
This sounds similar to a guest we had a couple of episodes back. Her name was Sumati. I think you seem to know her as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Sumati and we were speaking about this aspect of not wanting to do what everybody is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think in Indian society, that used to be a pressure. I have a teenage daughter now, and I keep talking to parents who have kids who are, say, in the age group of anything between 14 to 30. And I find that this generation doesn't seem to have that kind of pressure comparatively because nobody seems to be
Mm-hmm.
doing the done thing, and there is no such thing like everybody does it. In our times, there were engineers, there were doctors, there were CAs if they were good in accounts or something. So everything was success was seen with certain layers of where you came from. And I think a huge middle class always aspired to be into two or three fields of work.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when I hear people like you, uh, sometimes I think, did I really opt for the right thing in terms of academics and the kind of exposure I've had?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, of late, uh, with the kind of lifestyle I lead, I've been working from home for a long time now, uh,
Mm-hmm.
8 to 10 years. Uh, Spending time with friends when I want to, going for a meditation course, switching off my mobile and connectivity with the world, uh,
Mm-hmm.
or even choosing what jobs I want to pick up or not. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yes, the pressure of uh, my friends doing well has always been there, but somehow there is a sense of knowledge that is inner knowledge that kind of shows you the path, that this is what will make you perhaps a little more calmer and peaceful and happier. So I want to know within this whole gamut of pressure and friends and parents and even husband, even if there is no pressure, there is another person involved in your
Hmm.
uh, quote unquote destiny, for want of a better term, or the
Hmm.
life you're
Hmm.
leading, there is still
Hmm.
that sense of no, there is something right about all the chaos.
Hmm.
Do you feel that? And if you feel that, can you tell us a little about that?
Uh, do I can do I feel what? Sorry.
That there is something right about that chaos.
Right. Uh, I mean, chaos is one indicator that you are thinking, and there's change, right? So when there is stagnation, it's not, again, let's not say chaos is good and or like order is bad, or order is bad and chaos is good, but chaos definitely indicates that there's some change. And I think change is the only constant, right? So good or bad, you are moving.
Okay. What I meant was instinctively there is something that seems right.
Hmm.
More, uh, okay, knowledge gives us confidence that what we know, it may be right or
Hmm.
wrong, but we think it is
Hmm.
right, so we move in the world with that confidence.
Hmm.
Now, this chaos state that we are talking is a prelude to that learning.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
still during the lesson, you haven't completed it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yet, every step in that lesson
Hmm.
is taking you forward or backward. You know certain things are wrong, certain things are right. So it is
Hmm.
clearing the mist, if I
Hmm.
were to call it that.
Hmm.
And that gives you confidence. Does that give you confidence? Is what my question is. And does this happen the way I described?
Certainly, exactly like you do. Just passing through that phase, uh, being with it, holding to the chaos, and letting for the mists to unravel. I mean, things would make sense only in retrospect, but just being there and experiencing it brings in a lot of confidence. I think at the time you're feeling underconfident, but then the next situation, you know, you have already been through it, so you feel more confident because you know in the past you have been there and experienced it.
So I'm trying to question you sheerly for the benefit of the audience because a lot of people go through this and want to give up or are quite overwhelmed by the situations, uh,
Hmm.
thinking because there is no majority in the mind.
Hmm.
When there is majority, that means you stop thinking, perhaps.
Hmm.
You're already on the first step to stagnation of sorts. Because you're
Hmm.
just going with what you've read or whatever you watched on TV or your mobile phone or Google or something. But living
Hmm.
your truth is always going to be a difficult path
Hmm.
because you are not certain for a long period of time. Because
Right.
you've decided that the lessons are going to be mine and I'll go through
Hmm.
every step. Whether I
Hmm.
fall or not, I will learn on
Hmm.
them. Now, there
Right.
is a certain ability to take risk and what you call confidence in the situation that you just mentioned
Hmm.
is the ability to take more risk as you go
Hmm.
forward. Because you know
Hmm.
the last phase is okay, this much I can handle now. So let me
Hmm.
try.
Hmm.
Now, I have a contrarian question to this.
Hmm.
Within that point of despair,
Hmm.
again, this is a loaded term, but there are days when you are completely disillusioned with your journey and you don't know
Hmm.
whether you are
Hmm.
being too much. And like your parents said, maybe just be normal.
Hmm.
Uh, Although as I grow, I think there is no such thing called normal. Everybody is abnormal in a
Hmm.
very idiosyncratic point of like
Hmm.
view.
Hmm.
So how did you handle that part when it was like there is no light? no end of the tunnel. There is no light, and you're going through a difficult time. And even the people who you're not pressured by are just sitting and watching and allowing you to, figure it out. But there
mm,
is certainly the pressure that, okay, we are partners in something, a journey or
mm,
so of sorts.
mm,
I need to
mm,
figure out my crap, whatever it is, and
mm,
have something to right or wrong is still further.
mm,
But
mm,
how do I clarify what I stand for?
mm.
So, can you talk to us about those despair, despair wala moments?
Sure. So one thought that kept recurring in my mind while you were describing is, see,
Hmm.
this feeling overwhelmed and despair seems like a big thing uh, in our heads, uh, and I certainly feel it multiple times and in multiple situations, and I'm sure I will keep feeling it. One thing I've learned to do at that time is forget everything and just thinking about that day. I don't know if at the end of the day I'm going to be alive or not. So why not just think about that one particular day and what can I do within that day which is under my control, and just forget everything else, right? So because I tend to get overwhelmed when I'm living in not the present, right? So um, if you're feeling despair at that situation and you're alive, we just make use of that moment, right? So um, does it make sense? I know what you're saying. Sometimes everything just seems, like you say, really 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 bad, and what can you do but just think about that very moment and that end of the very day, and nothing beyond, right? Because you don't know.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful insight you brought to it. Uh, very often I find that that keeps happening because if you plan too much or if you research too much, uh, during COVID was one example. A lot of people were affected in the mind, and I had quite a few friends that I spoke to. And very
Mm,
often, because it was like mass hysteria happening. Don't
mm,
touch the lift button, and oh
mm,
my God, I touched it, and you were not wearing your mask and you coughed. Or
mm,
people were anti everyone else of sorts.
mm,
And very often, my idea of uh, helping them resolve that was telling them, look, people died before COVID. And even after COVID is gone, we'll all die at some point. Or
mm,
or things will keep happening. They don't happen because COVID has come. COVID is one more aspect of nature which
mm,
is trying to teach us something, perhaps. And
mm,
while it is a very harsh teacher, one needed to worry about the lesson.
mm,
And very often I found when you spoke to them of the harsh reality of things, it kind of helped rather than tell them, no, things will be all right. Because things weren't going to be all right in my mind as well. Even when I
mm,
saw everywhere there was death and destruction
mm,
of sorts, and
mm,
young people were dying, and uh,
mm,
the hospitals were full, and there was no oxygen available, and
mm,
people who were taking vaccination had adverse effects initially. All kinds of things were happening around you. And there was no news that you could trust actually, because everything
mm,
was chaos, chaos, chaos. But what I saw in myself was that look, uh, the worst part is my mind, which is going berserk with all this information. So
mm,
very often, I had already stopped watching all news, all numbers, because the numbers went uh, deep into the mind, inducing all kinds of fears.
right.
And people said, "Oh, I'm afraid." But do you know 14,600 people are affected
Mm,
today? I said, how does it help your cause? You don't even know
mm,
14,600 people to start with.
Mm.
I like the aspect that you brought up because it's a very important understanding that in any situation there is only things that you can do or you can't.
Mm.
Our thinking doesn't make anything possible. Whether it can only help or inspire or demotivate or do anything. But the
Mm.
actual doing of whatever, so if you're hungry, if you're eating, only then your hunger will be appeased. Or else, if you
Mm.
have no food available, you just have to make peace with it. Either way, it is only your mind that is in your control.
Mm.
And that will lead to whatever action you're taking, being more right than normal, if possible.
Mm. Mm.
Uh, how was your childhood? Were you always a very sensitive child? Did you think because when I look back, sometimes I find myself wiser when I was younger
Mm.
and more fearful and doubtful as I grew. Now I'm trying
Mm.
to become the same as I was as a kid, but as a kid, a lot of things were sorted. My
Mm.
relationship with God, or God existed or didn't exist, with
Mm.
nature, with friends,
Mm.
compassion that I had for others, the sense
Mm.
of fun and ease of being. All that was lost somewhere in trying to be an adult, which was mature and got the answers. And uh,
Mm.
like one funny incident, not an incident, one funny line of thought I had as a kid was I wanted to
Mm.
grow up very quickly and become
Mm.
old, not young. Because I thought these guys have all the answers. They all look so sorted. It's only as
Right.
I grew up and I thought, okay, everybody is a kid who's trying to show that they are sorted, but they are more distorted than even the kids. So
Right.
that was a disappointment to me because
Mm.
it was like a movie. You think it's real,
Mm.
and by the time you come
Mm.
close to it, you can see, oh my God, I've lost my entire life following a
Mm.
mirage.
Mm. Mm.
So, how was your childhood? How do you look back, or anything that you would want to share?
uh, so I think one thing that stayed with me throughout was just being curious about things. I think that sort of always stuck. What changed was maybe back then I was uh, I would want to imitate people and be like someone. And as I grew older, I started questioning, but I don't want to be anyone. Who am I? Who am I? So
Wow.
that is changed because I think as a kid I always wanted to be like this person or like that person. But as I grew, I started to think, okay, who am I? Yeah, that changed. And yeah, but otherwise uh, yeah, more distorted, I guess. Probably then I didn't have words, but I still was, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, that's that's mostly what I can think of.
Okay. So then my question is fairly simple. Now that you are you,
Mm.
who are you?
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things, this is just a sharing because I haven't thought in these terms uh, before now, actually. Because this question has just dissolved somewhere. Who am I has dissolved. You're just
Mm.
finding breath by breath or reaction by reaction. Okay, this seems to be a tendency that is very mundane. This
Mm.
seems to be a tendency that seems to have evolved or devolved or whatever.
Mm.
It's like just
Mm.
continuously watching a change in the being itself. So certain
Mm.
things are very favorable or unfavorable or useful in terms of having as a habit pattern. So a certain kind of discipline is useful. Uh,
Mm.
Overdoing the discipline is detrimental.
Mm.
Uh, so one is trying to now find a balance of the right way to live rather than be so self-obsessed about who am I. At least in my case, it seems to be because it's after a long time I've thought about this question. Thanks to your provocation in that sense. Okay, who am I? And also there is a certain sense of discovery. Oh, this is who I am happens without asking the
mm,
question.
mm,
So if I were to say see someone who I like or dislike or want to give something and I don't have money and my sense of uh, stress about, oh, I wish I had money so I could.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
Suppose I'm walking on the streets, I see somebody hungry and I want to
mm,
give something
mm,
and I don't have
mm,
money. So my
mm,
first question is still not how will, oh my God, I wish I had money. It's more like,
mm,
okay, so what do I do now to ensure that this person gets to eat or something like that?
mm, mm,
And it becomes less and less about me, uh,
mm,
and more discovery of who this whatever mind body phenomena I like to call it now. Uh,
mm,
Very Buddhist in nature, and I seem to like it because it keeps evolving, and I don't want to pinpoint, okay, this is who I am. Because
mm,
on a day that I think I'm the worst person in the world, I find so
mm,
many good things within me that I'm surprised, oh, okay, you are not too bad. And on the day that
mm,
I think I've cracked it, on those days I
mm,
find doing certain things which I think, look, you should be ashamed of yourself.
mm,
So that sense of being is very volatile, if I were to use the term.
mm, mm,
It's just bubbling all the time.
mm,
Uh, okay, one last question then. With all
mm,
this uh, different turns and twists on your journey, and what are you
mm,
looking forward to doing with whatever your being is as of right now? Uh,
mm,
because I don't know if you see it like that. Most of the time, I'll end up seeing that there are things to be done in the practical world, which I'm
mm,
thankful for, so that at least that part is sorted. Somebody else has thought, okay, I have to drop my kid to the tuition and back or whatever. Very
mm,
small thing,
mm,
but it kind
mm,
of relieves me of thinking of how do I make the world a better place in this moment. In this moment, you just do what you're told to do or what
mm,
you are expected to do, which is a
mm,
blessing of sorts to me. So, how do you, in the present, see
mm.
yourself, or what is it that you are planning to do in the immediate future? So,
Um, sure. In the present, or maybe one thing I'm constantly trying to do is uh, sh- help, or not even help, to make sure I am confident and spread that confidence through whatever experiences that has made
mm,
me that. And uh, just just saying it's okay, and confidence is a mindset, and it can be developed, and you just stay confident is what I've been trying to tell or share, or in any way that I can. Yeah.
okay. So wonderful. I hope the guests who've been listening and who will listen in today to this podcast take home this lesson, which is a very critical lesson because on the surface of it, it seems like a very much abused word, confidence. But
Hmm.
the journey that you've led, where confusion is, say, 80% and clarity is 20%, at least in my eyes. In
Hmm.
fact, less perhaps. Sometimes it's 95 and 5 also on some days.
Yeah.
But that 5% light can actually dispel the 95% darkness gradually
Hmm.
and in a very conclusive sort of way. That confidence is very hard one rather than just posturing.
Hmm.
Uh, so on that note, thank you so much for giving your time, and this has been an amazing talk, a thinking aloud kind of talk for me as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'll see you. Bye.
See you around. Thank you.
Bye.